Today, in this video, I'm going to show you how to do a simple cash flow analysis. Now, don't bail on me here. I promise you'll learn a very necessary skill. At the end of this video, I'll be happy to provide you with a complete Excel spreadsheet cash flow model of everything that we're talking about today. A cash flow analysis is a critical step in determining what level of income a particular business can deliver. In fact, it is the basis of any good business plan. I like the bed and breakfast cash flow model as it's simple and easy to understand, particularly the revenue generation component. Several years ago, I was approached by a couple that were good friends. They were aware that I'd been evaluating many businesses and was skilled at business evaluation and cash flow projections, and they asked if I would take the data that they had from a particular bed and breakfast they were looking at and plug it in and build a cash flow model so that they could actually take a look to see what the business would deliver. This is a summary of what they told me. The B&B in question was almost $1 million, $998,000, and the annual revenue was approximately $228,000. As we spoke, they said the current owners had provided them with historical expenses and revenues and had been turning a profit. My friends were very excited about the idea of owning their very own B&B. Often, our enthusiasm can override our ability to look objectively at a given business opportunity. I can say that after evaluating 57 different businesses, it can be very sobering to do an actual analysis to expose what a particular business can actually generate when considering all the factors. As I spoke with my friends about the B&B opportunity they were looking at, I began to ask them some questions to get some additional data. The first thing I found out was that A, they did have great credit and no debt, but they had no real capital to invest. That meant that they were going to need to purchase the bed and breakfast. And as such, they were going to have to take a loan out on the business, the particular bed and breakfast they're going to buy, and they were also going to have to come up with a 20% down payment on the business and the particular bed and breakfast they were looking at. And that was going to amount to about 20%. So we're looking at roughly 20% of $1 million. We're looking at a business loan of about $200,000. So this was some additional data that I needed to put together this financial model. I want to take just a quick moment here to describe what a cash flow analysis is, a cash flow financial model. A cash flow financial model typically includes the revenues, all the money that you're going to be bringing in, and the expenses. It's revenue minus expenses equals your profit, how much money you're actually going to make in a business under typical conditions. And you also need to factor in things like startup cost as well. So the cash flow in and of itself is simple. The real challenge is accurately predicting the revenue. In this case, my friends had historical data, and that was great from the current owners. Okay, let's start by taking a look at the revenue side of the equation. This particular bed and breakfast had 5 rooms that they could rent out. The current owners were renting them out at $150 a day, and they had approximately an 80% occupancy rate. So the rooms were filled 80% of the time. That's pretty good. Very successful bed and breakfast as far as occupancy rate. And if you'll notice, right there for the bedroom 1, they're all the same, bringing in the same amount. The amount that you're going to bring in 1 month at $150 a day at an 80% occupancy rate is about $3,500, $3,600 a month, or about $43,000 a year. As you look down this list, all 5 of the rooms are exactly the same. You're going to see that the total revenue for a month is about close to $18,000, and it's going to generate about $216,000 of total revenue for those rooms for a year. Now, at this particular bed and breakfast, they also had 4 events every year that they would sell tickets to, and they'd bring in about $3,000 an event. So that brought in another $12,000. So if you look, the total revenue for this bed and breakfast on a monthly basis, on average, was close to $19,000 a month, And for the year, it was close to $228,000 for the year. Not bad. That's a nice chunk of revenue coming in to work with. So let's go take a look at the expenses and see how this all comes out. On this slide, the bed and breakfast, this is an estimate of the facility mortgage and leasing options. Basically, they were going to have to purchase the place for $998,000. They were going to finance 80% of it, and their down payment was going to be close to $200,000. It was going to be on a 30-year mortgage, 12 payments per month. So you can see the rest of the figures there. The principal financed was close to $800,000. The interest rate they could get was 7%. You'll see the monthly payment was $5,312. You have to throw property taxes, insurance. If there happened to be a common area maintenance fee, you'd have to include that in there as well. So the mortgage plus the taxes plus the insurance came out to $9,495. That is something that we need for the expenses. So we know that that much money is going to be going out a month just to pay the mortgage on the actual bed and breakfast itself. Okay, on this slide, we're going to show the business loan. Now remember, my friends did not have any capital put down on their project, so they were going to have to take a 5-year business loan out on the near $200,000. And that was going to result in a 5-year monthly payback of $3,859. This slide shows the expenses, the monthly and yearly expenses for all the things it takes to run a bed and breakfast. Now remember, they had historical data, so they knew about what the electric bill was going to be, what the water bill, gas, phone, cable TV, bank fees, credit card services for running people's credit cards to pay for the rooms, supplies, cleaning, housekeeping, advertising and a reservation system, guest services, repairs, for electrical and plumbing and so forth. On this second slide here of expenses, we're going to continue with postage, lawn service, computer furniture, household items. There's a vehicle, food, any dues, ticket purchases and flowers for the tables, any B&B annual licensing, security services, trash removal, property and occupancy tax, if there's any consultant fees involved, liability insurance. And you'll see the last figure there is the facility mortgage tax and insurance that we talked about earlier. That's the $9,495 a month for the actual mortgage for the bed and breakfast itself. So that gives us our total expenses of $17,823 per month, or $213,879 per year. Okay, now that we've accounted for all of the revenue and all of the expenses and the additional factors that my friends brought to the equation, the fact that they were going to have to take a business loan out and they were going to have to finance the bed and breakfast business and facility itself, all included in the total expenses now and broken down by month and year. Look at these numbers. Total revenue, $18,973 per month. Total expenses, $17,823, for a gross profit of $1,149 per month. Now let's put in the fact that they got to pay off their business loan that they used to start up the business, the nearly $200,000 business loan. That was going to be being paid off at the rate of $3,859 a month. My friends would have been losing $2,710 per month, even though the current owners are making a profit. The current owners are making a profit because they did not have to take out a business loan, and they very well may have already had their entire facility paid off. That's why it is so critically important to lay all this stuff out in a cash flow model to see what the business can do. Here's the power of putting together a cash flow model in a spreadsheet where you can change any of the numbers. Needless to say, my friends were quite disappointed. They had their heart set on this bed and breakfast. They said, what if we take over the bed and breakfast everything stays the same, and we raise the room rate. Now, assuming that they could raise the room rate to $175 per room per night, and that they could still maintain their occupancy rate. Now remember, raising the price may reduce the occupancy rate, but let's assume that stayed the same, the occupancy rate. I plug those numbers in and take a look at this. Yes, they went cash flow positive. Instead of losing over $2,000 a month, they would now be in the black, making $286 a month or $3,430 for the year. These numbers were still totally insufficient for them to live on. That's the power of putting together a cash flow model. To learn more, or if you have questions, or you would like a copy of this financial cash flow model of a bed and breakfast, you can contact me via my website, www.57businesses.com, or my companion website, Gears of Wealth, at www.gearsofwealth.com. Before you make a major investment in a business, be sure and do an accurate cash flow model to see if that business can indeed deliver the kind of income stream you're going to need and meets your financial goals.